Hey, welcome along to another episode of Behind the Bar podcast, brought to you by the coaches and clients of RT Fitness Durham, Sunderland, and of course the Barbell Club, where we take you from complete beginner to photo shoot ready. So today's episode, I did the video on this. I didn't check the lens or anything because the camera stuff isn't my realm, and it's ended up blurry all the way through, but the sound's on point, so you can still listen to it properly. Today's episode, we have my good friend Craig, who's been on a absolute spiritual journey through the practice of yoga. So this is all about his journey. We could have talked forever on loads of different topics, but we kept on point with the yoga. So here's his story. Right, Craig. Who is Craig and fitness background?
Craig is somebody who he's somebody who is currently interested in. He's on a spiritual path.
Right. Let's go before.
Okay, Craig. Let's
say 20s. We'll start 20s.
20s.
Actually, younger. If you think of younger, you were into everything.
So I grew up trying everything as a kid. I was basketball, rugby, football, golf, and then table tennis, and then ended up really liking golf, and then through my teens started getting into music basically, and then like got into DJing a little bit, and then once I hit into my teens, I was living a kind of party life. Life was about party. Hedonism was that continued for 20 years. So I look back on that and I see just somebody consuming mindlessly, in a kind of like unconscious way where it's all about the thrill, all about pleasure. And then when I got 28, I had a spiritual awakening in a jacuzzi in Las Vegas.
Right.
When I went on a stag do with some friends, and he opened my eyes, like started talking about the universe and the soul, and I was like, I'd never even thought or considered about any of these things. And he said certain things in a way like how your energy manifests around, because there was a few people who were like saying bad stuff about other people, and he's like, you know how like your karma comes and manifests, and I was like, what are you talking about? So he gave me this book, and then it was like a nuclear bomb went off in my mind.
Right.
And I went down, started reading all these Buddhism books and all these.
What was the first book?
The first one was called, what was it called? The Cosmic Ordering Service. So it's very similar to a book called The Secret, where it's about like the law of attraction. And there was one story where it was called A Room of 1,000 Mirrors, where it was like a dog goes into this room, wagging its tail, all happy, there's 1,000 mirrors, and there's 1,000 happy dogs coming back to it, so it's just like, oh, look, all these happy dogs. And then an angry dog goes in, and what happens? All these angry dogs are staring back at it, so there's a little life lesson about like reflections of, like what you put out and what comes back. And then I read one called The Journey of the Souls, where it was a guy who did past life regression. So he hypnotizes people and they talk about their past lives. And I was like, well, if he's hypnotizing, where's this information coming from? I was like, it must be information stored. So I was like, okay, maybe there is something, about like past lives and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of got me going down little rabbit holes. And then, so then it was all about like, well, this is all about like learning about yourself and self-development, meditations and all that kind of stuff. And then I realized I had all these fundamental flaws, like in relationships, jealousy, paranoia, various different things, and I didn't know how to fix them. So then I tried psychology. I did ayahuasca. I did like Cambo, this like frog poison that they burn into you, and then like more spiritual stuff, which is like the meditation side of things, basically. And then I've been doing that for about 10 years. So basically, that was like you're just seeking, you're just looking in lots of different places to try and find things that would help you. And it was only during COVID where I got put on, I would say like my progress was like this kind of thing. And then I found a book called In Engineering, and then it just opened, it was almost opened me up as profoundly as when I had the spiritual awakening, and just went like this. Right. I was like, wow, all of these pennies started dropping, and I was like, wow, I found a route here, which is finally like kind of what I've been looking for, shall we say. And it can have like extremely profound effects on me as a person, how I operate, how I function. That was quite powerful.
So would you say between like where you've said
in COVID, so that's coming up to 3 years ago. So the last 7 years between where you had your first one to the 7 years, would you just say like life was still like, you were still living the life, and that wasn't like, do you know how you said you were just on a slow journey with that one? So life was probably more important to you in a sense rather than the spiritual journey?
So I was still like quite heavily focused on like just like living like the kind of lifestyle which would be you know, material things, or like, you know, going to Miami, Ibiza, which I thought, you know, was the be all and end all of everything, and still great places, you know what I mean? And then just looking at things, and you just see what has substance and what has value, and like what's just done for pleasure, and it's like a kind of short burst of something, you know, it doesn't last forever. Yeah. And, you know, are these things really satisfying in the long term, you know what I mean? And then, so like now I'm at a point where even like when I'm in Berlin, it's like I feel like my mindset's totally changed. I've kind of sucked myself out of the Berlin sucker system, and it's like, right, spending all weekend in clubs, which I've done for the last few years. It's like, okay, now if there's a good DJ, I want to go just for 4 hours, enjoy the music, come home, get some sleep, you know what I mean? And then focus on like building a more balanced lifestyle and more, because without balance, you can't achieve anything in life. And I think finally, everyone wants balance in their life, but everyone can see that they've got issues with themselves, but nobody can really. Not. You what?
Or not. Some people might not be able to say they've got issues with
themselves.
No,
I'm not. Sorry, yeah. But I mean, some people definitely, but like everybody knows that, you know, certain behaviors aren't great, you know, but some people just like are totally ignorant, like to the maximum extent, and they don't care, so they just get on with it. So for me, it was like, right, okay, I feel like it's just also like it's an age thing as well. Like I feel like I'm getting to 50% of my life. I've done all this now, and it's like, well,
you don't have 50%.
I would say roughly.
I would 60. That's 76, man. We've got
74.
90, man.
Okay. Well, it's just the way I look at it. It's just a feeling. Just a feeling like you're transitioning into a new. And it's interesting because like I've been reading this book recently, and it talks about how when you hit 37, you become less identified with your body. And what does that mean? It's like, so when I was younger, you know, I want to just go out and sleep with people, and, you know, and there's all this like very much physical attractions and stuff. And it's like when you get to this age, your focus shifts from that, like being as bothered about that, to more your emotions and your psychology and how you know, and how you sent yourself in different ways. And I was like, well, that's kind of happening to me now. You know, it's like I don't really, those things that would push me, you know, like physically, I can't control these things, you know, these desires. They no longer control me, shall we say.
Right, okay.
And there's probably other things that are now controlling me. And my focus has shifted in that respect.
Mint.
Yeah.
In engineering, is that what it's called?
In engineering.
In engineering. So from there, is that where you would say you went on the yoga?
Yes, right. Exactly. So yoga, what I realized is yoga's not just doing some stretches and then
physical activity.
Yeah. It's far deeper than that. And when you go to these places in India, and they transmit things in a much deeper way. So, like for example, in India, everyone wears loose clothing. Now, if I was to go to a Western yoga place where everyone's wearing tight, hot pants and stuff, I'm going to be looking at their ass.
Yoga pants?
Yeah. And it's like, that's not conducive for the deepest level of concentration and focus. And when you do it on the deepest level, you see its profound effects that it has on your energy system. And the point of it is that if you think it's essentially a lubrication for life. Everyone who goes through life goes through it with friction, and it's like, you know, whether it be stress here, there's something that happens in your life where it's like it's not smooth, you know what I mean? Yoga is essentially lubricating yourself, so where everything you do comes smooth and easy, and it doesn't, all that friction that you have inside you, it is no longer there, kind of thing. Or like that's like the long-term kind of goal once you do it for long enough. Because you're tapping into something that's not like the physical or the mental. It's like your energy system. So it's kind of opening different things up. The focus is on the spine. You know, it's very heavy on the spine in this. Right. So the spine is one of the most important things because once like that's like aligned properly, and once it's, but I don't know how the technology works. Like they'd have to explain. I'm just a beginner, but just doing these things, you notice like how it kind of frees you up and the space that it gives you, and when you operate in different ways, you know, you don't feel as much friction generally in life. And what does that do? Well, if you've got no friction, then you find it easy to get out of bed in the morning. You'd find it easier to have discipline. You'd find it easier to do things. Like I used to hate moving house in Berlin. I've lived in about 4 different places in Berlin. People, it's a nightmare city. There's real issues in the city, and I hated moving house. I was like, I've only got one more move left in me. After I've done all this stuff, I'll help anyone move house. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Because this is doing things willingly. Doing something willingly, you just do it. Whereas if you do it unwillingly, your mind starts going and you start creating stress, and that's where this like you just tire yourself out just from thinking.
Yeah.
Instead of just going right, crack on and get on with it, and that doesn't. There's no energy build up. There's no friction there. So there's that. There's a few different things where like I changed my life like in ways where I was like, wow. And that's what I've needed, because like I just generally been in my past lazy, undisciplined, and so that's been quite nice and profound actually.
So what kind of yoga is it? Because obviously there's hundreds out there.
Yeah. So this is called Hatha Yoga, classical Hatha Yoga, and I've only done like there's supposed to be like 81 different postures now. So the concept of Hatha Yoga is there's what's called 81 asanas. So if you imagine you're sitting in a posture now, right?
Right.
And then there's a million different postures, so if you're unhappy, you'll sit in a certain way, and if you're happy, you'll sit in a different way. So
Like closed off from being arms folded type.
Yoga's almost like reverse hacking that system. So it's like they know what effect, if you're happy, what comes out that way. And they flip it around, and then they put your body in those ways, so it makes this go. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the principles of it. And I've only learned like I think like 20 or something. So I've kind of like done the beginners, and then once I've done 2 months of this, I'll move to the next one.
Right.
And then the idea is to do that for like 2 years, and then there's a one that they do called Shunya, where you've got to sit like this, just sit still for 8 hours a day for 8 days, and like you try doing that. Like when I did this course in America, just sitting still is impossible but the whole point is it's breaking your limitations, because that's your body telling your mind no, and it's breaking your mind. It's breaking the limitations in your mind, and once you break those limitations and push through all that, then it's all about breaking these limits, and then once you smash those, all the other limits that you've put on yourself, you go through. It's all about breaking the limitations essentially.
Would you have to be silent doing that? Or is
Yeah,
it
you
like
would, yeah.
No Netflix?
Silent, exactly, yeah.
Just completely.
No. You'd be in a room with loads of other people.
Oh, would you?
There'd be loads of other people in that room.
Hours?
Then you'd have breaks, like you'd stop for lunch, you know what I mean? And then you'd do like
Right,
4 hours.
yeah.
And then, but it just, the people, the main guru says, like, if you can just sit for 3 hours like this, you'll know everything that needs to be known. And the point is that if you think about perception, right, and focus, right, the more focused you are, the more perceived you are, the more you do something, the more information you can take in. We designed that we're constantly looking in different places. If a noise happens, if this happens, if that happens.
Notification goes off.
Yeah. So that takes your perception, it lowers your perception. So the whole point of this is you're sitting there like that, and you're not going to allow anything to do that. And once you do that, that means you've cleared all of the distractions, and you can see everything so much more clearly in so much more focused vision. And that means you take so much more in. So that means that when you're doing life, it's a much more profound way of living, because you're ingesting so much more clearly and more, perceptive, really.
How long have you went yourself?
What,
Almost?
sitting?
Aye.
So my legs go numb, and that's one of the hardest parts. So I can do like half an hour to an hour,
Right.
but my legs go numb. And I asked one of the guys, no one ever really gave me a good reason, but there was a guy, I did this in a city called Varanasi, and I did like this, it was like £8 for a personal training sessions for
Right.
yoga. So I did that, and I was like, look, what's wrong? And he was like, you've got too much, you need to do more exercise, you need to lose some weight, because you've got too much like chunk, and like, so I was like, yes, that's right, it makes sense, I have. So like, imagine me doing it in a stretch down here, right? And then me gut goes like this, I'm like, So that's one of the drivers for me now, wanting to do exercise, is so I can just to improve that as well. And then once that disappears, like I'm curious to see how long I can go. You know what I mean? But you know, when your legs go numb, it's like being in bed. You're like, oh God, you don't want you know, if that stops.
Because then you start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Over everything else.
The pain is one thing. I think, you know, that's you know, you can over time you can get over that. But with your leg going numb, it's like it's not supposed to be numb for too long. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's dies. So, so that's.
Aye. So with I mean, we'll go to the retreats you've done then. Let's go for the America one.
So they do a program called Inner Engineering, which is like, it's not really yoga. It's more like meditative stuff. So you do a few stretches, then you sit there, and it's like you do this like kind of vibrational chanting stuff, and then you do a few different postures, and that's like a kind of like put your toe in the water, and then once you've done that. But the point of going to these ashrams is that the way it's transmitted, the environment that they create, it sinks into you so much. I did the same course online, and I was like, I need to go to these places, and just the way that you know, it's the way that it's transmitted, and then also it's like an ignition, you know, it's like it starts something in you, and in a much more profound way that you go, okay, that's sinking now, and I'm going to go and do it, and they're just, it's not like I can go to somebody and do it every week. You've got to do it on your own back. So I did that for 3 days in America, and it made me realize, like, by going to these places, the experience level and how much deeper you go with it all, it's much more valuable than you know, going in Europe to.
Was there no phones as well? Or,
no, you can't. I mean, not really mobile phones, but you can't have them in the room afterwards and stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like on a night, but really, like, you don't really want to be on them and stuff.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, are you cut off from all distractions?
But
and that's
the
what
thing.
makes
Unfortunately, like, there's no internet connections like on the one in India, but people have got phones with 4G on still. You know what I mean? So it's like, so that was a shame in some ways, but. Sadly, in India, I got sick, so I was lying around watching YouTube all day because I had nothing else to do. So that was a bit of a shame. But
and what was the India one supposed to be then?
So the idea was I learned I did some courses, and then I was like, I wanted to go to this ashram where I know if I'm there, I'll practice every day, 2-3 times a day, and I'll get into routines, and I'll learn, and there'll be all the experts there who can help me, like, it readjust me, and then I'll also add a few new courses onto what I'd already learned.
Right.
But what I realized is, I was like, right, I think I've got enough on my plate already, because there's like a whole host of things you can do, but until you've spent time and committed to it, you shouldn't like try and jump too far down the line.
Yeah.
Like, if I try to do that 8 hours a day sitting now, like, my legs would go numb. It would be a waste of time. You know what I mean? So I know there's a couple of years worth of work there. But like in that environment, like it's just like. So that was why I went, and like the daily eating and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you're eating there, you have 2 meals a day. You're supposed to get up at like 5, and then you do your practices, then your courses start, and then you have like time during the day where you've got these like temples which you've created where, like, you go and sit inside them, and there's just this energy in there where you don't even have to be good at meditating, and it just makes you kind of meditative kind of thing. So it's like putting yourself in an environment where, okay, this is not my real life, but it helps me get stuff deeper for when I go back to actually having to like build the habits up in, you know, in the real world, should we say. But one of the biggest things I took away from it, because I was sick, and it was like a kind of a self-lesson to me, was like, look, it's nice to try and create a perfect environment for yourself where you can do your stuff, but ultimately life ain't going to work like that, and you need to be able to get on with it without, you know, doing that. But I think in the initial learning phase, it's good, you know, when you learn the practices, to get it all. But I was like, okay, you haven't actually been able to do what you want to do, but it just gave me more drive to crack on at home, like building the morning routine, get up, get in the shower, then do your yoga practices, and then that sets you up for the day. You know what I mean?
It's hard to get quiet.
Yeah.
It's hard to get, like, anywhere in the world. It's hard to get that little sound.
Yeah.
Quiet.
So, that's why it's like, you know, at least in Berlin, I can create my own space. Yeah. That's like something I've focused on. You know, it's like creating the right environment, which is conducive. You know, like a gym is conducive to getting your fitness goals done. doing it at home you come here, you know you're going to do a hell of a lot more than you probably do at home, because the environment's conducive. But you can build conducive environments for yourself, and that's one thing I'm doing it with at home, with like, so for example, having like little statues in the bathroom with like Buddha heads and stuff. What it does is it's just a reminder, okay, to switch you back onto this, because the spiritual path. Yeah, exactly. It's good triggers, like the Atomic Habits says, and but triggers in ways that stops your mind, because when your mind starts going, ultimately it's just a load of waffle getting going, and you snap yourself out of it sometimes. These things. And I went to this city in India called Varanasi. It's the spiritual capital of India. They used to have like 3,000 temples there. This city called Varanasi, it was one of the most spiritual cities on the planet. And there's just temples. There was temples everywhere. There used to be like thousands. I think there's not so many now because of over the years that some of them got ruined. But the energy there, I've never felt an energy like that before. When I drove in the taxi, it felt like someone was tickling me inside with like a little feather and stuff, but not like too tickly, just like warm. And because they've got all these things there, it keeps everybody in tune, shall we say? So, and if you're keeping in tune all the time, your energies are good. You know what I mean? It's like that's all it takes. Because if you just sit there without thinking, your natural state is like it's not a negative state. It's the psychological side of you that creates like all your bad stuff. You know what I mean? You harvest your own.
Yeah. Would you say it's like the Ibiza sunset?
What's that?
Like that feeling.
Oh, yeah. Do
you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny, actually, the Ibiza sunset, because Ibiza has a very rich spiritual history. And I've seen sunsets all around the world. Well, not all around the world, actually.
You have?
But I've seen a fair few. And I've never felt like that sunset outside of Mambo and Del Mar. There's something about with everyone clapping, and there's just a spiritual. There's just
this slight silence before, and then like.
And the music that they play, I think that makes a difference. I think that there's the history of the Balearic vibes, and that's very like spiritually like kind of orientated music. It's very like slow.
Hippie-ish.
Yeah. Very, and so it's what's interesting about is when they do the chanting and stuff. Like the Indians have learned about like how vibrations like affect you. So the different like chants that they do. There's one of them that can get rid of anxiety, where it's just like an chant, and then it creates a vibration yourself. So I've been like when I go to like in Berlin, when I go to Berghain, sometimes the bouncers make you like really nervous because they reject people loads. And when I feel my anxiety coming up, I just go under my breath, and I tell you what works, and it's just like it's just creating these vibrations, and they've just studied the body in ways where. It's like, they understand like the fundamentals of how it operates as one, and like the proof's in the pudding for me, like with the like what it does.
But there's so many things like you can do for anxiety. That's what I mean. Like it's like people get anxious about starting the gym, something like that. But like all it could take is like, do you know how you do your home thing? You could just put one of your favourite songs on, one bouncer. It's like a ready type song. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
and even just some little breathing techniques.
And that's essentially what's that doing is it's getting you out of your mind essentially. And it's taking it's making you in a certain way that your mind is no longer the driving factor in it. So there's obviously going to be different ways to do that, and people should. What I find most interesting about the Eastern wisdom is, I feel like. We've gone over we robbed India of all of their treasures in we've done that a lot. But what we've done is
not us,
not me and you, but in the legacy. And I think a lot of the if you want to really learn about, there's so much Eastern wisdom where it's been. The white folks are trying to take it and use it for their own advantage, but these are not the masters and the experts. It's the people in India who've got all the real depth of knowledge. So the people who copied it and brought it here and try to transmit it ain't transmitting properly. So people aren't seeing the value of it. So it's not being used. It's being wasted, is what I'm trying to say. Like there's all these like modern what's in business now: meditation, mindfulness. That all comes from the East, and there's so much more depth that goes in. And it's like. I'm going on a pilgrimage over here. I'm thinking, shit, these guys know so much, right? Like I've wasted, like if I'd have found this earlier on in life, when it actually like resonated with me, your life would be so much more profound, so much earlier. But
that's part of the journey.
Yeah, of course. But the West has always been about external, material, and like get a nice car, get a nice family and whatever, and like stature. But these folks all were like spending thousands of years like going inward and like understanding, and it was less about, you know, the material stuff. And then when you go inward and you learn and you see a different perspective on it, I think you can just like you can add so much more to your own like your cultural ways. You know what I mean?
But that Western material thing is, though, from the East, we can sell it to the West.
What do you mean?
Do you know what I mean? Like, so all the meditation, the healing, all the rest of it, it's like because the Western place is such a consumerism place.
Yeah.
Like of course, like Westerners are going to go to East to take the East and sell it as a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know what I mean? But East is just using it as a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You get it?
Totally. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating to me, and I think personally, the West, like, you know, the approach is fundamentally flawed because it's all about individualism and self. But for the world to really, you know, come together and solve all its problems, that's not the best route. And I honestly believe that over time, this stuff, because of their, what should we say, you know, legacy issue mistakes that would have been maybe made in the West, that the East wisdom it's filtering through now. You know what I mean? And I think that will come into people's lives, and that will hopefully, you know, like provide more balance within the Western societies. Hopefully, this is why actually the guru says that's why I go to America to set up new bases, because America influences the entire world. And I was like, that's very smart actually, because he's like, some people could argue, oh, he's making spiritualism commercial. Well, it's like you can't. You need money to build facilities in different countries, and you know, I don't see him flying around on private jets and looking flash and being in like Rolls Royces. He's committed his life to helping humanity. It's there to be seen. And
but if anything, he's making everybody who does this, yes, even if you've got to pay for it, at the end of the day, he's making people happy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if there's anything that deserves money, or it's something that's helping other people, you know what I mean? Not some rich tycoon who's just, you know, selling oil or whatever, and then living a billionaire lifestyle. It's like, if anyone deserves to be in a private jet or riding around a Rolls Royce, it's these people, you know what I mean? Because they've done such a good. But people always have really cynical minds, and including myself. This is one of the things in my own spiritual growth. No, it is. But it's nature, you know what I mean? But we have the tools not to be that way. Nature is our animal monkey brain, but we also have the tools. But I'm just talking about examples where I read something online and it's in all this in opinions and that, and it's like I don't want to be that way. Like I feel like there's a level of friction involved in that, where if I'm not like that, it's not affecting me. I don't need to spout off that energy. My time would be better spent, you know, just letting that flow or whatever. Everyone's going to have opinions and judgments on others, of course. Everybody does. But I think there's levels where it's just people are just too judgmental and too opinionated. But I don't care about other people so much. It's me, because I know if I can, that area of my life, it's wasted, I think, you know.
But nowadays, like, because the thing is, most of the negativity stuff what we see now is through our phones online. So it's easy enough just to block, follow, unfollow. Yeah. It's so easy. Yeah. Because anybody who, even clients who are negative on my feed, I just unfollow. There's still my friends there. Yeah. But I just unfollow. And whenever I look now, I mean, I don't really use it to scroll, but whenever I look, it's just happier people. Yeah. And like, I mean, I don't watch the news either.
Let me put it in another way. If you are cynical and judgmental and opinionated to somebody, that's going to come across to them as if you're, you know, in attacky, you know what I mean? And I don't think it necessarily provokes good reactions, rather than, you know, if you're coming from a place where it's like, if you come from a different place where you're not that, then there's more room for growth, shall we say? I think, but I don't know. It's hard pondering these things. You know, there's no clear answer. I'm just exploring the ideas.
It's so easy for humans to get caught up in a drama.
Yeah.
Especially someone. Did you hear about this?
Oh, yeah.
Such a dick
definitely.
Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, is she? And then it's like, fucking, you wrapped up in this thing and said like, oh, what did I hear? It was actually this business book, but he was saying like, you'll always hear about the person who was in a horrific car crash, instead of the 10 million people who made it to work safely. Yeah. And like who've lived the life that day. Yeah. We always talk about that one horrific or...
Yeah. It's weird how humans work in that respect in the media and all that kind of stuff. Like, And it's like you're not. But this is a perfect example of and if you bring consciousness to this, then you look at the overall data. At top, if you are data driven, you'll have a much better outlook on the world. You'll have a much better perspective on what's actually going on, rather than letting things that affect you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you what, I've just did it this morning with you, where I said one of the fuckers has put weight on.
Aye.
And it's like, and I put 20 others have lost weight.
Yeah.
And I did it straight away. I focused on that one, say, person who's put weight on instead of like fucking getting the 20 others. Some of them lost fucking 5 pounds, do you know what I mean? And it was like,
that's the thing.
I did it myself,
I mean, so for example, that's an interesting one to think about. It's like, if you go, oh, you've failed, you haven't done this, or if you champion the ones who did, maybe the ones who didn't will be, oh, I want to be like that and I want to follow that a bit more. They're achieving, I want to achieve. That's why I said I had a bet with my friend about like losing weight, and it's like, if he starts doing well, now I'm going to be like, I need to get my arse in gear. So
you just need to make public stuff about that.
I know that.
I tried it before with him and another lad, calling them fat friends between each other, and it didn't work.
I see accountability all over the place, and I can't do it. For some reason, I don't like it. And again, it was when I went on the spiritual path that I stopped setting goals. Because I found I was beating myself up all the time. But I think there's definitely two approaches. If you set goals, there's nothing. It's great. A lot of people do it. That's how people get to where they are in life. Yeah. But my main goal is just being like the best version of me, and my flatmate can't accept that. He's like, well, you need more specific goals. But I'm like, but if I just get up every day and slowly improve like 1% or do something every day that's a little bit better, eventually I'll get there, and the things that I want would come out of doing my best, shall we say. So my focus is doing my best, and this is why I've found yoga, because if I can operate daily at my best, then whatever I want to do in life is kind of, the results would come from that, you know what I mean? But if I say, right, I want to do this, here's a roadmap to get there, I don't know, I just find it's too structured. And then I was just beating myself up, and I didn't achieve it. And I was like, this is having a worse effect on my mental health. So I was like, put the goals out the window, and just like every day you start from scratch kind of thing. And like I stopped labeling myself as well. I found that was the most profound thing I could do when I stopped labeling. I don't identify myself as things, and then I was like, okay, so that means I'm not lazy anymore. I'm not undisciplined anymore. That means all that weight on my shoulders, for all that self-hate's gone. It's like, right, if you've got less hate in yourself, you're lighter, you can operate better, and you flow.
This is always a crux as well for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that we'll probably not go down that rabbit hole, but you know what I mean? It's like that. I mean, this would have been better for Sarah's podcast, wouldn't it? But it is one of them. It is lazy. It's like, well, if I am lazy, but it's because that's who I am. That's
one of the things I struggle with, is people who say that's the way I am, and you're probably the same. And it's like, that's the lowest level. That's the lowest level. No, the highest level of ignorance. Yeah. No, it's just ignorance. It's like you're just so identified with that. It's like quicksand. You can't get out of it. You're stuck in this quicksand. You were never getting out of that quicksand. You could get out of that quicksand like that if you stopped identifying yourself with it. And it's all about identification. And what's funny about yoga is you identify with your body, you identify with your mind, and ultimately, what yoga says is you're neither of those things. Your body is just an accumulation of food over your life, and Ross Thompson is just an accumulation of every bit of information that's gone into you has been digested by you and created what you are. Like if I tonked you on the head and you lost your memory, you wouldn't be Ross Thompson anymore. You wouldn't know who I was. You wouldn't know who Sarah was. So you're just an accumulation of memory essentially. And then there's what's classed as your awareness or your life energy, which when you die, Ross Thompson, that memory's gone. Your body will go back into the earth, but the energy gets transferred somewhere. So it's this energy section, or this awareness, or this consciousness part, which is where the yoga focuses on. And it's fascinating because you are all of these things, but you kind of rise above it and you don't let it dictate what you are. So you kind of using yourself as a puppet almost, and you're not getting dragged down by all of these identities, but you can use them all when you need to, you know what I mean? You can use every facet you've got. if you do it that way, then you're not constrained by your past,
Yeah.
or because a lot of people suffer. All your habits come from, and
From past life, from early life.
And this is why I feel like, for me, getting rid of my habits, this stuff's the best, because you separate yourself from them in a way.
We could easily say we're two kids from Fancy who have an chance. We could.
That's
do you know
yes,
what I mean?
Exactly.
We could have used that.
And this is why I think people who make it out of poor environments, they don't identify. That you don't have like I guess you could say, a victim mentality.
Yeah.
And then because I think that would be something that would drag you down as well. Like, there's no denying people have bad lives, but if you dwell on it and you identify too much with it, I'm sure it would be detrimental, like, to your long-term aspirations.
100%. Right, and now you've got to go, because you did say quarter past, didn't you?
What time is it? Oh, yeah.
Do you need to really go now? Or can I get one more?
One more.
Right. Well, we'll finish off. So what advice would you give to someone who's, say, wanting to start yoga? I mean, because I think people generally want to start it on a physical type thing, but what advice would you give to someone to start?
I would give this. I would apply this principle, what I would say now, to anything. If you want to learn anything in life, you need to find the masters, the best. Like, if I want to learn anything, now what are the masters? Now, the masters are the foundations from India. So if you want to get in and you want to actually get the most out of this, by all means, go and try it with different classes and and see and whatever. But find out the foundations that are in India. Or when you find these things, find out where they were trained. Find out what style it is. Don't do Kundalini yoga. Never do Kundalini yoga, because that, like, you need to have done various different kinds of yoga, and you can fuck your whole self up for, like, really badly if you do that, because that's a kind of spooky one, which is I won't go into it too much. And then find like a classical hatha yoga, which most people do, and then and just read about and understand that, like, read a little bit about the culture, the history of it, and just also like some of the wisdom involved, and just do some due diligence. And like no offense, but if you go to a yoga class up the ramp side, it'll be good. There's nothing wrong with it, but you need to understand that there's much deeper levels to it than just going and doing a class. It's not about fitness. It's not. Yoga is to open you up to kind of different dimensions within yourself that you've probably never touched on before. So just understand that it's far deeper than fitness. It's not about fitness. It's not about fitness. It's not about being flexible. It's about opening up something in you which allows you to, whatever your goals, aspirations are, allow you to just function and maximize, flower in your kind of highest potential, shall we say. So that's all I would say. Find places where I've done they've been trained in really good institutions, and they're not, they've got their life is pure yoga. So it's like they live and breathe it, and understand, learn about the food and how it affects your energy, and it's far different to health and fitness in a sense that you're learning about what food, what it does for your energies, and how it affects your mental balances and stuff like that. So there's a level on the nutritional side which is fascinating, which I would highly recommend just reading about as well.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, son.